This is the only way.
A lighthouse stands as a beacon of hope and a guiding light for every sailor braving the treacherous and unpredictable seas. But sometimes, lighthouses can lure sailors to their deaths if they're manned by some evil force. In the horrific world of the TV series From, where things are never what they seem to be, our main protagonists soon come across a lighthouse of that sort. What would this lighthouse do? Would it guide them to safety, or is it just another tool to bring forth more ruin to their already ruined lives? That's what we're going to be exploring in today's video. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What is the lighthouse in From? As season 1 comes to a close, things are extremely tense in the mysterious town. Thanks to Kevin and his lust for a creature he called Jasmine, the creatures manage to ambush the colony house, driving the survivors to the town. While all hell breaks loose in the colony house, Boyd finds out that Father Kotri, his best friend, had Sarah tied up in his basement. Kotri discovered that Sarah was intricately entwined with the place. She was able to hear voices, and these voices were all-knowing. As a confirmation, Sarah was able to draw the logo of the candy bar that Kotri gave to the boy he was unable to save. When Kotri reached the town, the first thing he did was bury the candy bar, the bloody clothes, and the alcohol he had with him underground. No one knew about that except for Kotri. However, Sarah, who had come to town after Kotri, somehow managed to know the exact logo. This confirmed Kotri's suspicions, and he asked Boyd to consider Sarah to be the answer to all of his questions. Boyd was already preparing to go to the forest, and Kotri didn't think it was a coincidence that the connection had been revealed right before Boyd's journey. So Kotri wished to join Boyd on his journey through the woods with Sarah, hoping to navigate the mystical lands. However, as you know, in episode 8, All Good Things, Kotri was murdered by the creatures after they followed the survivors from Colony House. That left Boyd and Sarah to embark on this journey alone. While Boyd knew Sarah was a killer who wanted to murder Ethan and had murdered Nathan and Bing Chen, he held on to the hope that perhaps he'd be able to get to the bottom of everything with her help. For the betterment of everyone in the town, Boyd was willing to keep Sarah's existence a secret. In episode 9, titled Into the Woods, we see Sarah and Boyd venture, as would be expected, deep into the woods. Sarah finds Boyd's confident hunch about the directions a little jarring, so she asks how he knows where he's meant to go. Boyd replies with a very simple answer. He's following his best guess. He had ventured to a certain degree into the woods, leading to him getting the talisman back in the day, so he headed to the talisman cave as the first checkpoint. Beyond that cave, they would be venturing into unknown territory, and Boyd had no intention of going deep into these forests when only 2 hours of daylight remained. Sarah asks Boyd to open her cuffs as she has to go to the bathroom, but Boyd refuses. It's well known that Boyd is suspicious of Sarah, and Sarah reluctantly accepts his prejudice against her. The next day, Boyd and Sarah continued their journey further into the woods. In order to have some semblance of a path to follow back home, Boyd marked the trees. Sarah wonders if the woods would be like the fallen tree road, looping back to their starting point over and over again, and asks how Boyd knows the forest would be any different. Boyd confesses that he doesn't know, but as the audience, you can see that he's willing to take the risk. As they walk further, perhaps out of curiosity or to keep talking to maintain their sanity in this mystical forest, Boyd asks Sarah about the voices that told her to kill those people. He knew that the voices told Sarah that murdering them would bring everyone home, which is why she went through with it. But Sarah refused to give him an answer. This makes Boyd angry, and he points out that since she is second-guessing him and asking for answers, it should be fair for him to do the same. Reluctantly, Sarah explains that the voices told her 2 cars were approaching, and that if she didn't do as they said, something bad would happen. Tired of her not giving a clear-cut answer, Boyd screams at her, which breaks Sarah down. She confesses that the voices told her Nathan and everyone in the town would die if she didn't commit the murders, which stuns Boyd. Sarah then asks Boyd why he didn't just put her in the box, but Boyd doesn't answer. He realizes at that moment that Sarah is just another broken kid, doing her best to deal with everything on her plate, just like the rest of them. To protect someone she loved, Sarah was willing to commit murder, which is something Boyd could understand deep down. He releases her from her cuffs, which is definitely the first sign of trust. In order to keep their spirits up, Sarah tells Boyd that it was nice that Ellis, Boyd's son, showed up to see them off. Since that comment went without acknowledgement, Sarah tries talking about Abby, Boyd's wife, but this causes Boyd to become even quieter than he already was. This is when Sarah tells Boyd that he reminds her of Nathan, who, albeit a lot less gruff than Boyd, shared the same sentiment of putting loved ones before himself. She also adds that Nathan had a theory about this place, and if he knew they were in the forest, he wouldn't have liked it. Upon pressing further, Boyd learns that Nathan believed the forest and the town were an entity that would push people back back if people pushed too hard against it or tried to leave. Before this conversation could go any further, Boyd and Sarah are both distracted by the clinking of glass bottles. Curious, they follow the sounds and reach a tree. This tree has several bottles hanging from its branches, softly swaying in the wind. Boyd tries to pull one of the bottles down, realizing that something is inside them when Sarah suddenly keels over in pain. He has a hard time breathing, and despite Boyd's attempts to snap her out of the panic screaming, Sarah passes out. When Sarah comes to later, Boyd has already set up the tent. With the talisman hanging, Boyd assures Sarah that they would be safe. Sarah notices that Boyd managed to bring one of the bottles down, and upon asking, we learn that the bottle had a piece of paper with 1864 written on it. Well, Boyd is curious about the bottles and wants to push on. Sarah insists that they need to go back. Sarah hears a woman's voice in the woods telling her that there are things far worse than these creatures in the woods, and she wanted Sarah to tell Mr. Fish and Loaves that she was wrong. Fish and Loaves is what people called Boyd when he was in the army, and this is something only Abby and Ellis knew about him. So hearing Sarah say this obviously freaks him out, but before Boyd can say anything about it, they hear rustling near their tent. As they hold their breath waiting to see what happens, their tent starts shaking violently and eventually gets dragged around. The shaking knocks off the talisman, and as you know, if the talisman is on the ground, it's just a rock. So Boyd and Sarah scramble around the tent and hang up the talisman as soon as they can. Well, Boyd thought that would be the end of it. Something else happens. They hear a loud horn and their entire tent is flooded with light that moves rhythmically. Leaving things on such a cliffhanger definitely left the fans excited for the season finale, and surely the finale gave us everything we wanted. In the season 1 finale titled Oh, the Places We'll Go, we find Boyd and Sarah awake after a night that definitely left them shaken. Through their conversation, it becomes clear that the light was shining throughout the night. Sarah wonders if they're just animals who don't know what threats hang around them, sitting ducks who don't know what dragged them, and if what dragged them is even an animal. Boyd has no answers and decides that heading toward the source of the light would be the safest bet. When they step out of the tent, the view they get isn't what they were expecting. They were deep in the forest, but this particular part of the forest is covered in massive spider webs. There was no denying the possibility that they had been dragged into this region by a Shelob-sized spider. Despite this, Boyd and Sarah decide to press forward. They keep moving toward the light, and Sarah wonders if it's a good idea. Boyd brushes her off, which leads Sarah to press the matter further. Boyd explains that since they were dragged through the forest, they definitely can't go back in that direction as it's far more dangerous. The light they saw last night was powerful, almost like a floodlight, so chances are there would be safety in that area. And given how powerful that light was, it's still likely manned by someone, and that could very well be the answer they're looking for. Despite Boyd's logic, Sarah still feels uneasy. She remains hesitant, claiming the voice she heard was different, and she still doesn't know who or what Mr. Fishes and Loaves is. Boyd explains his army background and says that the nickname was only known to 2 people. Although he finds the idea that his wife sent him a message through Sarah preposterous, it seems like the only reasonable explanation. Sarah doubles down, saying that she came here to help, and the voices told her to go back, so they should go back. Before Boyd can tell her off, he hears a woman asking for help. We see that, well, for Boyd, the voice and the cries for help are very real. Sarah cannot hear anything. Boyd follows the voice of the woman, traveling deeper and deeper into the massive spider webs, completely focused on helping her, while Sarah follows after him, trying to snap him out of it. Eventually, Boyd finds the source of the cries. In a massive mound of webs, there lies Abby, begging for Boyd to help her. Boyd is shocked, unable to process what he's seeing, when the apparition reaches out and grabs his hand, letting out a scream. Startled by the scream, Boyd steps back, accidentally stepping into what seems to be a spider sack egg. Several arachnids scurry out of the broken egg sack and climb all over Boyd. He removes his clothes in a hurry, doing his best to get rid of the spiders, but some of them manage to bite him. Sarah helps Boyd as he flails helplessly to shake off the spiders he can't reach. The whole experience shakes Boyd to the core, but when Sarah asks him what he saw, Boyd refuses to answer. Boyd keeps moving towards the light, completely shaken up by everything that happened, and while Sarah tries to get him to talk, Boyd refuses. Sarah insists that they need to find shelter very soon because Boyd's health is deteriorating noticeably. The sky is already darkening from a brewing storm, and Sarah knows that if they manage to find a safe place, they would be able to survive the weather. Right then, they hear the horn that they heard last night. Realizing they're close, she takes the bag and helps Boyd walk further, reminding him that they're going in the right direction and that they'll be okay. Slowly and painfully, they manage to get on top of the hill and finally find the source of the horn and the light. It's a massive lighthouse right in the middle of the forest. Boyd knows his body is giving out, so he asks her to keep moving. In his eyes, this is going to be the end of him, and if Sarah keeps moving, at least one of them will survive. Sarah refuses to abandon him. Right then, out of nowhere, the boy in white shows up. He points at a faraway tree and tells Sarah that they'll be safe there. He also tells her that Nathan is right and that this place is angry at them for being there. In a rush, Sarah pushes Boyd to go in first and then follows after him, and both of them end up in 2 different places, as we know. By the end of the first season of the TV show, one thing is for certain: the lighthouse is definitely a crucial part of this town, which the entity of the town doesn't want people coming to. But how exactly is this lighthouse important? Well, lucky for us, we have the second season of the show to refer to. So let's see what we learn from the second season.
This is the only way.
Does it really send people into the normal world? So the second season of From gave us even more details about the lighthouse than we originally expected we would get. In the finale of the first season, Tabitha was digging in the basement of her house trying to find out where the electrical lines connected and ended up falling into an underground cave system. The house collapsed on top of her and everyone assumed she was buried there when, in reality, she was found by Victor, who had been waiting there for her. He told her that the boy in white told him to wait there for her. With Tabitha in tow, Victor quickly started navigating the underground tunnels, which were the resting place for all of the creatures that came out at night. While both of them were scared for their lives, they powered through and managed to get through the cave system. As Tabitha and Victor made their way out of the tunnel systems, Tabitha noticed one of the ghoulish kids. That obviously gave her quite the fright. Despite that, they managed to push through and get out of the tunnels before the creatures woke up. However, since leaving the tunnels, Tabitha was plagued by visions of these ghoulish kids. She would see them on the streets, near her porch, everywhere. To look for some answers and hoping to communicate with them, Tabitha went back to the tunnel opening with the puzzle she saw Ethan playing with. Her plan proved to be a success as the kids showed up. However, they repeatedly keep saying "Ankoi" and close in on Tabitha, leaving her in a panicked haze. Jade finds her screaming on the forest floor. Despite seeing Tabitha in such a weird state, Jade didn't question her. He knew what it was like to see things that others didn't. I suppose the nonchalant way Jade dealt with this is what made Tabitha open up to her. They eventually end up talking about whatever they had been seeing. While discussing, Tabitha recognized the symbol that Jade had been obsessing over. She told him that the symbol was present on the cave walls, and Victor was the one who pointed it out to her. This angered Jade because clearly Victor didn't tell Jade everything that he knew about the symbol. Jade's obsession with the symbol grew, and the confusion in Tabitha's mind about the kids did too. What did these kids want? Why were they showing up? And eventually, in episode 8 of the second season, titled Forest for the Trees, Jade and Tabitha basically corner Victor and manage to make some breakthrough. As we all know, Victor has been in Fromville the longest. He lost his family here when he was a young boy, and he has understandably repressed all of those tragic memories in order to survive. Now, in this episode, he gave Ethan his old jacket because it was getting colder. Ethan found a toy in the pocket of the jacket, which Victor recognized and immediately got upset. This triggered some of his memories coming back, and what we learn about his past is heartbreaking, to say the least. Up until now, we thought that Victor was alone in the root cell, but in reality, he was in there with his sister, Eloise. Their mother told him to find a hiding place that Christopher, the last guy obsessed with the symbol that Jade kept seeing, didn't know about. She also told them that she was going out to save the kids locked in the tower and that Victor had to keep Eloise safe. However, right after his mother left, Eloise went after her, but Victor could do nothing because he was scared. That was a guilt he had suppressed over the years. Now that the toy he and Eloise used to play with was in front of him, all those painful memories came back to him. Victor told Tabitha all of this, and the tower that his mother traveled to was none other than the Lighthouse. Now, as you know, from episode 9, things take a turn for the residents of Fromville. They couldn't sleep, and the cicadas were everywhere. Julie, Randall, and Marielle were under the effects of the cicadas and in a comatose state. Tabitha couldn't bear to look at her daughter this way. She came to the realization that perhaps saving the kids locked in the lighthouse would be the answer to everything happening in town. Jim was obviously not okay with this. He didn't want to lose Tabitha over a hunch, but Tabitha insisted. She claimed that maybe what Victor's mother started needed to be finished by someone, and she had to give it a shot as she couldn't bear to see her daughter like this. So, with Jim's reluctant blessing, Tabitha asked Victor about the way to the tower. Victor told her that he didn't know the way, but his mother had told him of a special faraway tree that would help them reach the lighthouse. Victor took Tabitha to the special tree and gave her his lunchbox with some snacks for whatever journey lay ahead of her. Tabitha thanked him and stepped inside the tree. She came out near the lighthouse. As Tabitha slowly walks up the stairs of the lighthouse, she keeps hearing the voices of the children saying "Ankoi" over and over again. Now, here's the kicker. In one of the episodes in the first season, there was a scene where Tabitha was in a basement looking for something. As she was coming out of the basement, the stairs she was stepping on changed into stone stairs, very much like the architecture you'd see in a tower. Tabitha seemed to be in a trance because, despite the change in architecture, she kept calling out to Ethan and Julie, asking them to clean up after themselves, to put away the toys and whatnot, as any normal parent would. This marked the beginning of her own quest. Now, when Tabitha steps into the lighthouse, she's on the same stairs she saw in that particular vision. The cards and the toys she saw in that vision are still here. As she moves further into the tower, she keeps hearing the kids calling out to her, saying "Ankoi." Tabitha follows the voices of the children and finally reaches the top of the lighthouse. When she looks out, all she can see is the forest around her, no sea or large body of water. So why was is this lighthouse here in the first place? Well, before Tabitha can make sense of that, the boy in white shows up. He apologizes, saying this is the only way, and then pushes Tabitha out of the lighthouse window. Tabitha falls, and the next time she opens her eyes, she's in a hospital. She slowly realizes that she has finally managed to get out of Frumville. So yes, the lighthouse seems to be the gateway or a portal that connects the mysterious town to the real world. Is there any meaning to the dates carved into the lighthouse? Remember that scene we explained from the first season of the show where Tabitha had a dream/vision as she was walking up the stairs of the tower? In that particular scene, you'll notice there were 9 dates carved into the stone, ranging from as far back as 1506 to as recent as 1978. On their journey deep into the forest, Sarah and Boyd came across a bottle tree. Boyd took one of the bottles down from the tree, and inside was a piece of paper with the year 1864 written on it. This date was also carved into the lighthouse. The year Victor got trapped was 1978, and that too is carved in the lighthouse. With 9 of these dates, you can imagine the curiosity of the fans was at an all-time peak. One of the most popular theories about these dates was that each could mark the start of a new cycle. New people would arrive on these dates, and eventually they would either find their way out or succumb to the mysterious threats of this terrible town. In the second season, we saw one of the monsters, whom fans have dubbed Smiley, get killed with Boyd's blood. Christy, Boyd, and Kenny decided to perform a bootleg autopsy on the monster to better understand it and figure out how to kill them for good. When Christy took out the creature's ribcage, its internal organs were entirely human. While they were completely dried out and discolored, they were still easily recognizable. Each of these creatures has a very 1950s aesthetic. The way they dress, their hairstyles, everything. This leads to a theory. If each of these dates marks the beginning of a cycle, it could be that the monsters haunting the 1978 cycle were created from the people killed in the 1950s cycle. Now, here's something interesting to note. The first cycle, from 1506 to 1609, is the longest. After that, the time between cycles shortens if these dates indeed mark the start of a new cycle. Could it be that as the cycles grow shorter, it's because no one managed to escape, leaving the town empty as everyone died? If 1978 is the cycle Victor belongs to, could it be that the new cycle hasn't started yet? And since Victor was the sole survivor, is that cycle still ongoing? We want to know what you guys think in the comments section down below. Marvelous verdict! There's no denying that the lighthouse is the key to leaving the town, but now the question is, what will our protagonists do? We're hoping that now that Tabitha is out and back in the real world, she'll try to figure out how to re-enter the mysterious town and hopefully guide others to escape the way she did. It could also be that when Tabitha doesn't return, Jim or Boyd will investigate the lighthouse, hoping to connect the dots. However, this journey will definitely not be smooth sailing. So if you're as invested in this show as we are, don't forget, the 3rd season dropped on September 22nd. Stay tuned to Marvelous Videos for all the best episode breakdowns, theories, and more. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. This is Wizard Wheezy signing off for now, but you can always find me on Twitch. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.